We're learning from Jesus about leadership, about discipleship. And we looked at the first section, verses 1 through 12, where Jesus diagnoses the front stage of the leaders of his day. And I think it's important. It's important for us to see that that entire teaching is consistent with everything Jesus teaches about discipleship. It's not as if we're hearing him talk about humbling ourselves, being servant to others, and thinking, well, Jesus never said that anywhere else. No, that's actually characteristic of everything Jesus has to say about following him. And he's just making application to us as leaders. Very important, very helpful. The weight of that has to grab us if we want to take seriously our leadership in following Jesus and helping others follow. So we come to the next section, which is actually the cause. So Jesus has diagnosed an unhealthy front stage. In a word, we've characterized that as self-worship. They do everything they do to be seen by others. And in these few verses, he tells us the cause. Let's read it. Verse 13, but woe to you. Now, Matthew 23 is a series of 7 woes, 7 judgments. This is why it's such a heavy passage. And those woes begin in verse 13. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, the leaders of his day. So experts in the Old Testament law, rulers, leaders, Pharisees would have been very conservative. He calls them hypocrites. And here's why. For you shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. For you neither enter yourselves nor allow those who would enter to go in. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you travel across sea and land to make a single proselyte, and when he becomes a proselyte, you make him twice as much a child of hell as yourselves. It's so harsh. And I'm gonna summarize this as the cause is a failure to enter in. This is, for you neither enter yourselves, nor, because of that, nor allow those who would enter to go in. See, you didn't enter into the kingdom yourself. You taught about marriage, but you didn't have a good marriage. You didn't enter into what God had for you in your marriage. You taught about prayer, but you didn't pray. You taught about giving, but you didn't live generously. Now, I'm using all kinds of external kind of works-oriented illustrations, but you get the point. Like this, the teaching, the kingdom talk, the Jesus talk is all about being on the platform, presenting ourselves a certain way, but we're not first and foremost entering in. I find this to be like a prompt from Jesus. This is you can use these 2 words, enter in, like just a soul care prompt that gets you started, gets you reoriented, help you to look back at your front stage. Is it healthy? These 2 words, just enter in. You go to prepare a sermon and you're getting it ready. Start with, am I living this? How does this apply to my life? Where am I not? Where am I deficient? What does God want me to learn? How can I experience this? I want to enter in. I don't want to just teach it. I don't want to just talk about it. I don't want to be the hypocrite that Jesus is describing here, where I eloquently can talk and wax on about a subject, but what's happening in the backstage and in all of the areas of my life is not matching that. Enter in. There's a movie called Yesterday where it tells the story of Jack Malik. Jack Malik is a songwriter, and he's not a good songwriter. And his manager is Lily James, and he actually loves Lily James, but he doesn't realize it. And And one day there's a worldwide blackout for 12 seconds. Like the entire world loses power, goes black, this freakish thing. And when it happens, Jack Malik is riding a bike. He gets into a terrible accident and he awakens from this blackout in the hospital recovering. He's going to be okay. And it seems like everything's normal, but the world has changed. And the Beatles, the musical group, the Beatles, has never existed in this now new post-blackout world. So remember, he's a songwriter, and he actually remembers the songs of the Beatles. And maybe it's because he got knocked out. Who knows? The movie doesn't explain it. But one day, with his guitar, he plays a Beatles song. And the people who hear it, his little friend group, are like, Jack, that's amazing. That's the best song you've ever written. Like, when did you write this? And he's like, you're pranking me, right? I mean, this is the Beatles. Everyone knows the Beatles. Takes him a little bit, but he realizes no one knows the Beatles. And every time he sings a song, people think that he wrote that Beatles song. And, at first he resisted, but eventually he becomes known as this incredible songwriter, like the greatest songwriter that ever lived. And then one day, he realizes that he's just completely a fraud. He's basically at a fork in the road, and he has a choice to make. And so on a huge stage, he comes clean. He tells the world, I didn't write these songs. By a group named the Beatles. He names the members of the band. And at the same time, he just professes his love for Lily James. And he says, you know what? I'm going to sing the songs, but I'm not going to make money on them. I'm going to give them away for free. And he chooses the pathway of this true love with the love of his life and this authentic pathway. He enters in, if you will. Now, just imagine for a second, you're at a fork in the road. And one way leads to this incredible front stage success. And the other way is the way of authentically entering in, knowing Jesus and experiencing the true love of Christ. Now, if you were at that fork in the road, and sometimes, though, we could say, okay, that's not, it's not either or all the time. True enough, it is a bit of a false dichotomy, but sometimes it does come like a fork in the road. Like, if I go this way, all right, this will work, I'll have success, but it is contrary. It will endanger my very soul and my relationship with Christ. And we face those kind of decisions every day. Now, just as a metaphor, there you are, critical moment, once in a lifetime, which way will you choose? Before you choose, remember this. You didn't write the songs. I didn't write the songs. Jesus wrote the songs. Jesus is the song. And we sing them, but they're not there for us to get rich or famous. They're there to exalt Christ. And this call to enter in is really such a glorious invitation. Jesus saying, hey, listen, if you don't do this, you're choosing this front stage obsession that, as he'll show us in the rest of the chapter, will actually bring death to your soul. And we'll talk about how this impacts the backstage in the next video.